You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network.
You're listening to the Full Count Major League Baseball podcast, your local source for trending Major League Baseball topics, season analysis, fun, objective discussions, and up-to-date coverage of the Toronto Blue Jays organization from right here in the Niagara region. Here are your hosts, Brandon Caputo, Reece and Colin Ward.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and I do have the mic on this time. Welcome to another installment of the Full Count MLB podcast, right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your May 26, 2021 edition by the time this episode is released. Your source of North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. You can find us on social media for updates and giveaways by following the podcast on Twitter at Armchair GM Pod, as well as this show's podcast at AGM Full Count Pod. Make sure you're following us there for all updates regarding the show. As well, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. You can listen to us on many platforms, including Spreaker.com, the free Spreaker app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Deezer. And now, for the first time in video form on YouTube.com and the YouTube app. Make sure you're subscribing, as my subscribe pillow says to my left there. And again, you can find us as well as on our user-friendly website, armchairgmsports.com, for all things regarding the network, including articles, podcast episodes, sponsors, and contributors. And we have a brand new mobile version of the website as well, so make sure you're checking that out. A lot better when you're trying to scroll through a mobile version of a website than a desktop version, I can tell you that. So as always, I'm one of your hosts of the Full Count MLB podcast. My name is Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on Twitter at Caputs13_AGM, as it says right underneath me on the YouTube version. As always, I'm joined by, first and foremost, right in the middle there, front and center. He is former technical producer at TSN 1150 and leader of the Lou Whitaker for Baseball Hall of Fame fan club. He is Reece Dumaney. You can follow him on Twitter at Reece Dumaney. Reece, I know you're jacked up about the Tigers no-hitter last week, so you should be in a good mood for today's show.
Oh, yeah. Plus, I made the greatest waiver claim of fantasy baseball history. Picked up Spencer Turnbull during the day. Boom, 61 points and a no-hitter that night. So,
and for your Tigers, too. So couldn't get better than that. Awesome. So great fantasy pickup there. Maybe you should be tweeting out your fantasy baseball pickups. Maybe people should be tuning into that, following you on Twitter. But with that said, we're also joined, obviously, last but not least, and he's got his trusty glove over there, the president of the Left-Handed Catcher Association. He is Colin Ward. You can follow him on Twitter at ColinWard_14. Just finished his third toss of the season there, Colin. How you feeling?
It was a dumb toss, I would say. I threw like 50 in like 25 minutes, and that was not very smart of me. I'm probably going to feel it in the morning, but...
No Tommy John, hopefully, for you.
No, that's a long time ago. I remember before I got benched for that. And it was my fault. It was my own fault. It was my own fault for doing that, doing what I did.
Speaking of benching, we're going to get into that. Something if managers disciplining their players, we're going to get into that in the first segment. But also to look forward to, we obviously Toronto Blue Jays update on this show every week. Whether you love them or you hate them, we got to talk about them. They're the team in this area, so we got to talk about the Jays, the pitching staff, and that's a whole lot of yikes. We're going to talk about the hitting, which has actually been pretty decent.
Bullpen.
And the Jays are going to have a new home. They've played their last game in Florida. They're going to be moving up north for their next homestand after their two series on the road here against New York and Cleveland. So we're going to talk about them. In the second segment, we're going to talk about the AL and NL standings and kind of just go over the thumbnail of today's video on YouTube, and that's dingers and no-hitters. So we're going to talk about the 2 no-hitters we had last week, 6 already on the year, and as well the home run leaders and kind of that that race is going there in the AL and the NL, respectively. So, with that said, in this first segment today is brought to you by Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, home of the best pizza and wing combos in Niagara Falls, Ontario, obviously, from Niagara this week, 4 years running. Visit them at carmine'spizzeria.ca and like them on Facebook for unique promotions. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, way too good. Speaking of something that wasn't way too good, gentlemen, that was the longtime St. Louis Cardinals manager, Tony LaRussa. He's now came out of retirement to manage the Chicago White Sox at his age. I couldn't believe that, but there were some interesting comments he made last week about one of his players and what they did during one of the games. I'm going to pull it up here for you watching along on YouTube, and it states, with that kind of a lead, that's just sportsmanship or respect for the game or respect for your opponents. LaRussa told reporters the next day, he made a mistake. There will be consequences that he's going to have to endure within our family, the team family. It won't happen again. Although the Twins were miffed, LaRussa seemed even more upset with his own player. He called the 28-year-old Mercedes clueless about the situation because he was a rookie, but now he's got a clue, he said. Mercedes, who spent 8 years in the minor leagues before reaching the majors, stood up against his actions and said, I'm going to play like that. I'm going to continue to play like that. I'm Yerman Mercedes. I can't be another person because if I do that, everything changes. To which LaRussa reported, I heard he said something like, I play my game. No, he doesn't. He plays the game of Major League Baseball, respects the game, respects opponents, and he's got to respect the signs. So, Reece, what do you think of old man LaRussa's comments here? Obviously, the old boys club still within the MLB. We have the people who don't like the bat flip and things like that. We've talked about that, many times on this show. And just what do you think about the comments like this? And do you think it's concerning for the game of baseball, who's trying to take that next step and get those younger viewers invested in the game with these bright young players? And you have somebody like LaRussa come back after retirement and, try to bring those old unwritten rules back into baseball.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, when it's a 15-4 ball game, not many people are going to be interested in it anyways, because as much fun as if you're a White Sox fan and you enjoy being up 15-4, it's still a boring game. Like you turn it off and you're like, okay, this game's over anyways. But if you have a problem with something, I don't want to get into hockey because this is almost the Mike Babcock and Mitch Marner situation where essentially the manager called his own player out for doing something stupid, even though it really wasn't that stupid. But he did it in front of the entire planet instead of Babcock doing it in front of the whole locker room. So I think if you see a 47-mile-an-hour pitch right down the middle, as a hitter, which, by the way, he's getting paid to hit baseballs for anyone out there that has a problem with this, you're going to hit it 450 feet to dead center. It's just an instinct. It's going to happen. And it was hilarious. It was so funny. 3-0 pitch up 15-4. That was awesome. So I can see both arguments, but okay, let's take it easy here, Gramps. Like, let's settle down and it's just a game. Like
that's an awesome chirp.
We also see a lot of the hitters too. Sometimes when those replacement pitchers come in or those position players come in and pitch, they don't even really know how to hit those meatballs because they're coming at them so slow, and they're used to major league pitchers pitching to them, and sometimes they don't even get hits when they're facing these guys. The ground outs happen or even a strikeout here and there. Colin, what do you think about that situation there?
I mean, there's a mercy rule for a reason. Put the mercy rule in if you don't want position players to pitch. I mean, don't throw the ball down the middle. Don't throw the ball down the middle. It's like what CC Sabathia sounded off on front.
Was awesome.
That was awesome. That was great. He's 100% right. Don't throw the ball down the middle. If you have a problem with having position players pitch, put the mercy rule in. Like Reece just said about if it's 15-4, you're probably not going to have much fan interest anyways. If I hear a crack off the bat from a bomb from Mercedes off of a pitcher or off of a position player pitching, if I'm a fan, I'm watching that because it's probably the only highlight I'm going to get for the rest of the game. So I might as well watch it. And I mean, I love it. I don't think there's any problem with it. I mean, that's a problem with baseball. These old Gramps, Reece, I got to take your quote. Sorry about that. That's Reece.
No, you're good. Not trademarked. You're all right.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, you got it. I mean, don't throw the ball down the middle. Don't put position players in the pitch if you don't want that to happen. I mean, that's baseball. And another thing is 3-0 counts. Reece, we've been talking about it for the last 3 weeks on here. I think it's pointless. I mean, what do you want him to do? Take the pitch, be down 3-1? Next thing you know, you're down 3-2 at the full count? Like, who cares? If it's down the middle, swing. I mean, Mercedes is probably one of the Rookie of the Year leading candidates right now through the first quarter of the season. Yeah. Why not? Why not swing at that? I mean, if you're hot, swing at it. Who cares if it's a position player pitching, or don't throw the ball down the middle. Don't suck.
Well, and I think also, too, the one thing that I didn't understand, and we talk about LaRussa being a older guy and wanting it to be how it was back when he was first with the White Sox. And as baseball players, or as hitters, I guess, what coach has told you to not care when you're hitting? Like, what coach has gone up to you and said, hey, we're up by 11 runs. Why don't you just give this a bat away?
Yeah, who cares?
Like, are you kidding me? Why are we living in a world where even though you're up by 11 runs, you're giving away at bats?
Be a robot.
Giving away at bats leads to bad habits and could lead to because if your manager just wants you to go up there and stand there and, you know, maybe swing at one or two of the pitches, but if you're up by 11, you shouldn't really be trying. Like, that's not professional sports. Like, what are we doing here? These guys are getting paid millions of dollars. People are paying pretty good money to watch these players hit baseballs very far.
Let them in.
So we can't, if you want the game to be interesting, you can't start promoting giving away at bats, because that makes the game even more boring than some people may say that it is. It's not baseball. And that's why LaRussa, like, he should get that out of everybody. Who gives away at bats at the major league level? That's the easiest way to find your rear end on a bus headed back to AAA or on the bench for the next 5 games, because that's where you would be if I was a major league manager. If you gave away an at bat, enjoy the slivers in your rear end, because it's going to hurt for the next 5 days.
No,
like Reece, sorry, Brandon, 1 sec. Okay. We both played for coaches that were just crazy, like old-fashioned baseball guys, like hit bats off trees and crap. But I mean, what kind of coach goes out and supports it the next day, saying he supports them throwing behind him?
Makes no sense.
What kind of coach does that? Can you imagine the guy that he forces Tim Anderson to go on social media and stand up for Mercedes? Literally, you're just dividing the team from the coaching staff. Literally, it's not just a manager that it goes down, falls back to. It's the hitting coach, it's the pitching coach, it's everyone. Because the hitting coach is going to talk to the batters a lot more than the manager does. So batting practice, they're rumbling around, they're talking about the quotes that LaRussa said. What do you think of this? And then all of a sudden, there's a divide in the coach's room too. So I honestly think the Whites, and then they go to the Yankees and just get killed, which is great to see, to be honest. If you're gonna do that, I want to.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
And
I never cheered for the Yankees, but that was nice to see.
My question to you before we move on here is, I'm going to pull it up on the screen for the YouTube viewers. I have the stats for Tony LaRussa, like his career, managerial stats here. And like, do you think that because of his pedigree in the league, I mean, he's been a manager for 34 years. I mean, he's got 3 World Series titles under his belt, but he's been out of the league since 2011. Do you think that there's some validity there that, he's been out of the game and things have changed a lot in the game in the last 10 years since he last coached for the Cardinals in 2011, now coming back to the White Sox in 2021. Like, you obviously respect his pedigree in the league as a player, and then 34 years as a manager was incredible. But like, do you think that like, just because of who he is as a manager and how he's perceived in the game, that benefits him or kind of hurts him in this scenario, given his career stats, Reece?
That's tough, because I don't know if it's so much the stats. I think it's the plaque in Cooperstown that you respect more than the World Series. Obviously that helps, but you look at the plaque in Cooperstown and you say, okay, this guy's a Hall of Famer. He clearly knows what he's doing. It may be good to shut up and listen to him once in a while, or not once in a while, most of the time. And with what I've kind of seen on Twitter about the possibility of the third base coach giving a 3-0 take, which you see at every level, 3-0. Most coaches don't want you swinging because if you swing out of your shoes and it's 20 feet over your head, then wow, good job. You just gave away a walk.
Where's
But
the camera picking that up
it's
too?
yeah, if there was a 3-0 take pitch, that's very understandable because again, you have to respect the manager. The manager is there to coach and manage the team, and it's his job to give signs to the third base coach and to essentially try and win ball games by managing his team. So from that perspective, you can see where he'd get upset. I'd be a little bit upset too if I was the manager, but I'd talk to him in private and say, hey, you're done for the next two games for missing the sign. But to come out and publicly address it, I think respect goes out the window when you call out your players and don't protect them after, a baseball that's being thrown very hard goes at one of your hitters. It just that's what got
the quote the following day.
There's respect, 100%.
In that case.
So, Colin, what are your thoughts on that, short and sweet, before we move on to the next topic here?
I'm honestly surprised he got hired. I mean, all that stuff that happened in the offseason, too, with the DUI incident there in Arizona, I believe that took place. But all that stuff that happened, I mean, he left St. Louis for a reason. Tony LaRussa, remember Colby Rasmus? The reason why he went to Toronto was because he had beef with Tony LaRussa. Apparently, it was degrading. I mean, apparently he degraded his players, and Rasmus was one of those guys, and apparently that's why he was out of there, because of degrading. So LaRussa's an old school guy, and that's what comes with an old school manager. I mean, Reece, we both had old school guys. We've had new school coaches. We've had it all. So, I mean, you're gonna get that. Unfortunately, I don't think that works nowadays with the players at any sport. I don't think that works. I think that's got to go. I don't really respect that too much, but it's interesting. I was surprised that they hired him, to be honest. Like, I thought for that roster too, they have their key players are Latin-born players. You could say, yeah, their key guys would be Latins, and I mean, LaRussa doesn't really fit the mold.
Yeah,
I don't think he fits that mold at all.
It's interesting because they're in first place right now. So, again, it's tough because you could say, it's not working, but
a couple of years that'll change.
Do you take the winning with what comes with that? We can talk about coaches and multiple sports are like that. Do you outweigh the winning over how he treats the players? So. With that said, that's a long discussion for another day. But with that said, before we get to our first break here, let's talk about the runner on second base rule. And I know Colin basically Colin wanted me to bring this up today on the show, and I'm going to pull it up on the screen here for you again on YouTube. You guys can follow along here. It's from the Turf. They cover baseball here, and I'll read off this quick kind of thing about what this writer said. He had a kind of the same argument that Colin did. He says, MLB's extra inning runner at second rule sucks. That's the start of it. For those of you unfamiliar in the slew of moves meant to enhance the game and make more moves or make more exciting during a shortened 2020 season, again, this can be for last year as well, Major League Baseball made rule changes. Some of them were left in 2020, like the generally well-received universal DH. However, one rule that has been adopted by the league and fans are not into it is the runner on second rule. If the game finished 9 innings and both teams are tied, the top of the 10th inning will begin with a runner on second base. That means whoever made the last out in the top of the 9th is now a base runner and represents the potential winning run. That's it. There's nothing else like it except that's just not a good rule. Let's take a look at some outcomes. Get a base knock and a runner can score giving up a lead. Boom. Hit a ground ball into the infield and you might just have a runner on third, 1 out, sac fly, and that runner can score. With a runner at third and 2 outs, you can pull off a squeeze play and potentially get the runner home. Basically, all this rule does is reward singles rather than extra inning doubles, triples, and home runs. Yes, if you hit a home run with a runner on second, that's a 2-run home run. I'm not stupid. But still, why try and hit a home run when all you really need to do is hit a single? So that's basically it from this writer from the Turf. Colin, I'll start with you. What do you kind of think of that? Because I know you were the one that really wanted to bring 100%. This up today.
100% agree with him. 100% agree with him. I think that it should go at least through the batting order once before you do anything. And I don't think a guy should go on second because, like you said, it's a single. It's stupid, quite frankly. I mean, you get a single, anything out of the infield, you score. I think you should put the guy on first, like let's say the 12th inning. Usually that gives you 3 innings right from the 9th. So you put him 12th inning, you put a guy on first. You do that for your couple. Then if it goes to 15, which it rarely does go to 15 innings a ball, it rarely gets to 12. Then you can do the guy on second because that's a long day at the ballpark. Then I would be on board for doing this guy on second thing, but I say wait till the 12th, put a guy on first, and do it that way because it's so. Then you need a legit hit to score him from first. It's not just a chink single over second base blooper and the guy scores from second, right? It's unfortunate. I don't like it, but I hope they reconsider that. I like the universal DH a lot better than the extra bases thing. I don't want guys like Trevor Bauer who just got paid a ton to hit. That guy's not getting paid to hit. He's getting paid to strike guys out. So I don't really like that. But
Yeah.
to me, they reversed it. But next year, I hope they go to a guy on first in the 12th inning. Don't do it at second.
Reece, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not as. I don't know if you're angry at the
Steamed?
rule, Colin.
It's hard.
Frustrated at the
I'm
rule.
frustrated with it because the Jays bullpen sucks.
Understand the rule. Well, okay,
doesn't help
all
the
right.
pitching.
If we're
doesn't help the
basing our
pitching.
decisions on whether or not our bullpen sucks, then I
No,
wouldn't
it's
say
not just that. It's not just that.
better. Except Michael
it's not
Fulmer,
just
who
the
closed.
bullpen.
That's awesome.
I'm just talking about the game on Monday against Tampa for the Jays.
Yeah, well, and I get the point. Is you're essentially a bunt and a hit away, or even a ground ball up the middle. If the defense probably wouldn't be playing back anyways, but essentially a bunt and a hit away from scoring a run. And you could look at it from, well, the league just gave them that run because instead of having to start 360 feet away, not a math guy here. Do you think I was looking behind you or something? No, I had to add or multiply 90 times 4. But yeah, you're essentially, instead of starting 360 feet away from the plate, you're starting 180 feet away from the plate.
Yeah.
Which you can look at it as, oh, they're getting a head start. MLB is essentially, here, take this run. We'll give it to you.
Manfred's got to go home for dinner, bro.
Yeah. I get where they're coming from. There's no time limit in baseball, and that is one of the best parts of it. There isn't a time limit. Baseball it can flow. We can play the 9 innings and be done after that. So I see their point where some of these playoff games, to play 9 innings, it could take 4 hours, it is starting to get into the ridiculous territory.
Playoff games are exciting, though.
But over 4 hours, you could have a lot of beverages over 4 hours and not even be awake for extra innings.
Yeah. Hey, that Dodgers Rays game when it rose rain at the Brett Phillips, that was the game of the year.
Yeah, that was a fun game. But
for the casual fan, I understand what Reece is talking about. For the casual people that go to the ballpark,
yeah,
Yeah,
it's you have to outweigh it. Do you want to play a game for 6 hours, or do you want to score more runs? Which essentially the NHL tried to do that with more goals and kind of making the goal pads a little bit smaller. This is MLB's way of kind of saying, well, we haven't moved the mounds back yet. We've done it at the minor league level, but not at the major league level. So what advantage can we give to the hitters with all of the pitchers throwing so hard and doing so well? That's essentially, they're trying to create more excitement because more runs is essentially more excitement for the fans. You get to see a guy cross home plate, you get to cheer for your team. That's pretty cool. So.
Yeah, Tiger's got that roar thing, like the tiger thing. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So that's basically it.
Get like a bird.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a rule where I think they did it to, again, speed up the pace of play, like Reece had mentioned. Yeah. It can be a long game. We've seen in the last couple of years there, games go into the late teens there, and those games, I'm sure for the people there, especially if they cut off alcohol sales by the 8th inning or something like that, then they're sitting there for essentially another whole game, and for some people that is hard to do without a tasty beverage. Yeah. So I can understand why baseball is trying to do this, but again, maybe a runner on second might not be the best scenario. I'm with Colin. Maybe the guy on first makes it a little bit better. And again, a single doesn't score, the game-winning run. Essentially, you can pinch hit for the guy and have him have speedster at second base. So I'm just not for
even if you start with a guy on first, the pitcher still has an opportunity to get a ground ball, get 2 outs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I think it's even that way. I mean, it's so hard for a pitcher. It doesn't matter who's pitching. It doesn't matter if the bullpen's crap or not. It can be the best reliever in baseball, and it still puts you in a tough spot.
Yep. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take our first commercial break on the show today. We're going to come back, and we're going to get into no-hitters and dingers section of our show today in segment 2 and go over the AL and NL standings as we sit today on May 26th by the time this episode is released. So stay right here. Be right back on the Full Count MLB podcast and right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, serving traditional-style Italian pizzas made with the freshest, top-quality ingredients. Loaded subs and their famous chicken wings. Winners of the Reader's Choice Diamond Award, 4 years running from Niagara this week for Best Pizza and Wings in Niagara Falls. Home of the best tray and wing combo in town for the price and quality. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., located on the corner of Drummond Road and Dunn Street. Available for call-ahead pickup or delivery at 905-374-4400. Make sure to like them on Facebook and view their website for their menu at carmine'spizzeria.ca. Carmine's Pizzeria Italiano, way too good. As we all adjust to this new world that we're living in today, masks are now mandatory, and Niagara's own Custom PPE is Canada's leading face mask provider. Visit them online at customppe.ca and choose between several mask options with different colors and sizes. Add your organization, company, or team logo so you make your face masks unique. Available to purchase online 24/7 at customppe.ca and shipped within 1 week. They have the best prices and quickest turnaround in Canada, and no order is too big or too small. Also offering custom floor stickers as well as face and counter shields for your business or workplace. Visit customppe.ca and use the code ARMCHAIR at checkout for 20% off your custom or blank face mask today. Custom PPE, Canada's leading face mask provider. Attention job seekers, if you are currently looking for work in the Niagara region, you owe it to yourself to check out the services provided by the Niagara Employment Help Center, located at 6100 Thoroldstone Road, Niagara Falls, directly across from the Camisos Plaza. Their free services include resume and cover letter writing, community resource and referral information, local labor market information, job search strategies, assistance with clarifying employment training and career goals, employment counseling and job search support, second career information and registration assistance, and all their services are currently provided by appointment only. So give them a call at 905-358-0021 or visit their website at ehc.on.ca, the Niagara Employment Help Center. This Employment Ontario program is funded by the Government of Ontario.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
There we go. Make sure the mic was unmuted. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to segment 2 of our Full Count MLB podcast and our first video version of the podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Brandon Caputo, Reece Dumaney, and Colin Ward back with you here. And segment 2 on today's show is brought to you by J&L Flooring, a Niagara-based specialty flooring and design company. Simplified processes and making homes beautiful are their specialties. Visit them at jnlflooring.com to start on the floor of your dreams today. Speaking of dreams, boys, could we ever have imagined that we'd have no hitters on back-to-back days in Major League Baseball last week? It happened, and now we've got 6 on the year, and I'm not exaggerating, 6 no-hitters, and it's only May 25th, May 26th area. So I'm going to pull this up on the screen for you guys on YouTube. I've got the no-hitter stats since 2015 there. And again, we're sitting at 6 in 2021 here, just to add a perspective here. 2 in 2020. I think that's 4 in 2019. 3 in 2018. 1 in 2017. 1 in 2016. And then 2015 had a lot too. I believe that's 7 in 2015. So 2015 was a big year as well. But again, we're sitting here in May, and we've got 6. So I'll let Reece go first because obviously he was pretty fired up that Turnbull on his Detroit Tigers was the first one to start this trend last week before Corey Kluber of my New York Yankees, as you can see in the background, also had a no-hitter. Colin was left out. If only we could have had all 3 of our teams have no-hitters last week. That would have been a heck of a show. But
That would have been
so
hilarious.
I've got, again, the Jays pitching. Good luck with the Jays pitching right now, but we'll get into that in the last segment. But
Tigers are decent. The bullpen's been crap.
So, Reece, what are your thoughts on just Turnbull getting the no-hitter and just those stats in general that are up on the screen for the people on YouTube about the amount of no-hitters we've gotten this year. We hear those years about the balls being juiced. I mean, what can we say about the pitchers this year?
I just find it funny all 6 no-hitters have been against just 3 teams and not 6. That's so funny. Like Cleveland, who's actually a decent team, you're thinking, what the heck is going on with them? How can they not hit? Like Jose Ramirez is still a good hitter, so that's really confusing to me.
And who they got no hit against is kind of like, that guy threw a no hitter against you?
Then you look at Seattle, and it's like, okay, it's Seattle. But then you look at it, what 2 teams no hit Seattle? The Baltimore Orioles and the Detroit Tigers.
Yeah.
like if you how bad does that sound as a franchise?
It makes you want to
you guys got no hit twice this year. Oh, it must have been against like Garrett Cole or Jacob deGrom. It's like, nope, it was against the Tigers and Orioles. And that's when you look at them like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's rough.
If you pull the stats up again, like you said, Cleveland, Seattle, and Texas have all 3 of them have been no hit twice, which is another incredible stat on its own. That it's been 3 teams that have been no hit twice this year.
Again, Texas, Seattle, yeah, you can kind of see that. Texas for sure.
Seattle's getting there. They got a bright future, but just not yet.
They do. Yeah, Kyle Lewis, he's gonna be awesome.
Jared Kelenic,
awesome. Yeah, he's unbelievable.
That's why I think Turnbull no-hitter was harder than the Means no-hitter. Because, like, Kelenic was there. That was, like, a second series? Yeah, a second series? So. Yeah.
Corey Kluber had 1 walk. Obviously, that was unfortunate, or else he would have been a perfect game. But, Colin, what are your thoughts on that? Sorry. Go ahead, Reece.
I think Turnbull had 2 walks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so again, those are always tough. You go back and look at it, it's like, oh man, 1 walk, really? But you don't know at the time that you're going to end up with a no hitter. So again, that's just the game of baseball that we know and love. But Colin, 6 so far this year through mid to the end of May. What is going on here?
Well, honestly, I just think the hitters aren't in it yet. I mean, once the weather gets nice, which it has been now, the ball starts to fly, but I honestly don't know. It's kind of just buy a lottery ticket. It's a luck right now. I mean, what are the odds of 6 no-hitters in its May? Beginning of June almost, but like literally we're like 2 months into the season, and what are the odds of having 6 no-hitters? My question is, if you guys were gambling, would you guys take another no-hitter this year?
Yes.
Yep.
The way it's going, for sure.
You watch it be like, nah, that's it. 6, which is a heck of a year, but can you imagine?
Yeah. Even if it finishes with 6, that's incredible. Yeah. And I mean,
it's so hard to throw one.
Out of the 6 guys, you've got Musgrove, Rodden, Means, Miley, Turnbull, and Kluber. I know Kluber's a 2-time Cy Young winner, but at this point in his career, I don't think anybody expected him to get a no-hitter at this point. And no offense to Turnbull or any of the other guys on the list, but those wouldn't be the guys that you would expect to have no-hitters, I think, for the most part. If you were to say, what 6 pitchers would have no-hitters in 2021, looking back on it, 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to be trying to come up with the best names possible from this era, right? So, Reece, what do you think about just the guys that are getting the no-hitters, kind of the unsung heroes that we wouldn't usually be speaking of, as opposed to these, these elite top-end aces that we would expect in the league right now?
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier to give an explanation about this when you've watched these pitchers throughout the year and kind of see, what's worked well for them so far this year. Like for me, Spencer Turnbull has been one of the bright spots for the Tigers this season in terms of the pitching staff. Casey Mai's starting to come along. Scooble's been roughed up, but Spencer Turnbull's gone out there and he's had quality starts. And you look at his stuff, you're thinking, okay, guys aren't catching up to his fastball. His off-speed stuff is dipping and diving and going all over the place. So you're like, okay, maybe he won't throw a no-hitter, but he has a chance to definitely maybe 2 or 3 hit a team. And then Wade Miley, you're thinking, oh, Wade Miley.
Still in the league.
And throws a no-hitter. His next start, he gives up 8 runs and gets completely destroyed. So
that's baseball.
It's weird. Like Carlos Rodon, you can kind of see the White Sox were really high on him. They really liked him. So I think they kind of expected that, maybe not this year, but maybe in a couple years to have a shot at a no-hitter or possibly a perfect game. But yeah, look at the names and you're like, this guy threw a no-hitter? Really? How?
Yeah.
Was he facing the Baltimore Orioles? Like,
Well,
so
they were
No,
facing
especially
one
the
of three
Baltimore.
teams, so you can
yeah,
pick your
exactly. Yeah.
take your pick out of those. Colin, the last thoughts on this topic. Just the guys that are
The
getting
one-
no hitters this year.
Turnbull. I was watching that game, and it was like the 6th inning, and I'm like, this guy might throw a no hitter. You mean you don't say anything? You don't say it, but like,
Yeah, I didn't see your text until like 5:30 in the morning the next day because as
Hey,
soon
you
as
see
I
that?
hit it,
Turn- yeah, what do you
I'm
think of
out.
that?
I'm out for work the next morning, and just nobody's gonna wake me up.
What do
Yeah.
you think of that? What do you think of that, Dax? Turn
That was-
the Detroit game on. I didn't even say anything. I just said something. Turn it on. Just turn it on. Something big.
Yeah.
that was funny.
I didn't want to say it.
like, my phone is on full volume for when my alarm goes off because if it isn't, I ain't waking up for work. So,
I think that's interesting too. Is that for most poor Tigers fans, they were out west, so a lot of Tigers fans had already packed up for the night and went to bed because they work in the morning. So I don't think they were expecting that Spencer Turnbull would be pitching a no hitter. And a lot of the Tigers fans, unfortunately, didn't get to see that live like Reece over here. I'm sure it would have been a lot more exciting for him if he would have saw it live instead of seen on a text message and watched the highlights of it the next day. Reece, just
Turn it on.
if that was a home game for Detroit and a regular 7:00 game, that would have been a lot. I think that would have been a lot more significant for your franchise.
yeah, I think it made up. I think the 61 points on my fantasy team made up for it, so that was okay. But yeah, like the last time we had a tremendous and phenomenal pitching performance, like stellar as in no hitter and perfect game, Jerry Meals or Jim Joyce ruined all the fun.
Yeah.
So, Armando Galarraga knows all about that. Sorry, Jerry Meals blew a different call in extra innings in an Atlanta-Pittsburgh game. Yeah, Jim Joyce ruined it for us, so it would have been nice to be at home, but still, massive accomplishment. Only the 8th time in Tigers history.
Yeah.
When you think of some of the pitchers they've had, right? So
Yeah, and again, for a decade that hasn't been kind to the Tigers, it's nice to have a story like that for them, and to have something positive come out of that with a young roster. But let's move on here, Colin, and I'll get your first thoughts on this next part of the thumbnail. Obviously, we talk about no-hitters. We've got to talk about dingers, though. Obviously, a lot going on right now with especially Vlad Guerrero Jr. from the Toronto Blue Jays, who we'll talk about in the final segment as well. Again, at the time of recording this episode, so again, it's not live as far as when the games are going on, but Vlad Guerrero and Ronald Acuna both tied with 15, and then you got Garcia and Ohtani tied for second or third, I guess you could say, and then Mitch Haniger from Seattle has 13, as well as Jesse Winker from the Cincinnati Reds. So. And Rafael Devers as well, which is a guy that you wouldn't expect to be at the top of the home run list, especially for his type of the way he plays the game. But Colin, with that said, just what are your thoughts here? I've got it up on the screen for our YouTube viewers here. What are you thinking about this race here for the home run crown? And again, two highly sought after young sluggers at the top there, Vlad Guerrero Jr. and Ronald Acuna.
Well, as of 8:03 p.m. on Tuesday evening, Vladdy is the leader at 16. Homered last night against the Yankees. So 2-run homer for Vladdy. He has 41 RBIs right now, which is crazy. 16 home runs. The one that really surprises me is Garcia in Texas. That surprises me because Texas, you wouldn't think of them having like a guy right now, right? And he's kind of emerged onto the scene right now. He's been quietly good, who no one's really talking about. So Adolis Garcia, batting .291, 14 home runs, 38 RBIs. That's a start.
Yeah,
That's a start. I mean, obviously, Shohei Ohtani.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what do you expect, right? I mean, he might be the most exciting player to watch in baseball. I mean, he can throw 100 and hit a ball 400 feet over the fence, no problem. I mean, that's impressive.
Despite being no hit twice, Texas and Seattle both have two guys in the top 15, in the top 5 of the all MLB home run totals right now with Garcia and Haniger. And again, like you're saying about Texas, I mean, if it's not Joey Gallo, I really couldn't tell you. A lot of guys on Texas right now. Just that roster is completely turned over from the team that we saw have those deep playoff battles with the Toronto Blue Jays a few years ago. But Reece, obviously,
I saw
Otani's the
highlights today.
yeah,
Donaldson.
yeah. Those are
That was electric.
yeah. We missed that for sure. But Reece,
Oh, yeah.
obviously, Shohei Otani is the talk of baseball right now, just because he can hit and he can hit home runs as well. But again, if that's sustainable long term, we don't know. But he's currently tied for third with Garcia, one, I guess, two behind Guerrero and one behind Acuna as we record this podcast right now. But just, do you think this is good for baseball that you have a lot of these young sluggers coming up and being at the top of this list here?
I think so. I think with the amount of hype that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had, and clearly there was more hype in Toronto and in Canada than, say, in Seattle or Miami. Like, pretty sure Marlins fans or Mariners fans are like, whatever, it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. He doesn't play for us, who cares? But for the rest of baseball and for all of the fans of his dad, Vladimir Guerrero Sr., it's awesome to see his son, and with his son being around, him when he was in Montreal, when he was in Los Angeles with the Angels, and one of the most famous clips, Vladimir Guerrero, was him hitting a ball that bounced and hitting it like hard. So I think that's awesome. I think Acuna is just flat out great. Another Venezuelan-born player to just thrive in the big leagues, following Miguel Cabrera, following guys like Maglio Ordonez, like you said, Garcia in Texas. You're like, yeah, Sal Perez, Wilson Contreras, even Venezuelan. And then, yeah, Shohei Otani, you're looking at like, hey, this guy can throw gas and hit home runs. That's pretty sweet. For all we know, Shohei Otani could change how we develop players moving forward. Yeah. Like a lot of programs, Colin, you know this as well as I do, around the Southern Ontario area. It seems like all these elite programs are starting to run the province, which is really dumb when you're paying $20,000 to play once every 2 weeks. But why are we specializing players at 16, 17 years old? Because it'll have the better shot to get a scholarship or something by just being a pitcher? No, the best shot to move on is to be able to play multiple positions and be as versatile as possible, because if you can play anywhere, that means the coach has an opportunity to put you in the field 7 days a week. So I think there's more Shohei Otanis to come, whether it's in Canada or the U.S., not a clue. But I think it starts a trend.
Up until midget, I never played the outfield. And all of a sudden, I'll go out there and do whatever you need me to do. Yeah, trying to throw guys out from right field. It was awesome.
Like that's what makes no sense to me. Is Shohei Otani can hit bombs. He can go out there and he could have a chance to throw a no-hitter. But who knows if that would have ever happened if he would have gone to his coach. Like the coach goes ask him, "Hey, do you mind? You want to pitch this game?" He goes, "No, I hit bombs and play in the outfield. Don't put me into pitch." So when you see him at the top of the leaderboard like this, you're thinking, like, this is awesome. And even Devers, Haniger, you're like, really? He's at the top? Ryan McMahon, yeah, he plays in Colorado, but you still have to have power to hit home runs. Tatis Jr., since being injured, has been unbelievable. It's Fernando Tatis Jr. He's awesome. So, yeah, I think this is awesome. Home runs are great, and the game seems to want more home runs. So I'm not surprised that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. has 16 home runs in 47 games. Not surprising at all.
Although they're at the bottom of the screen, 18th, Brandon Crawford. That's cool. Brandon Crawford. I mean, remember when he came up, how everyone said, oh, he's too big to be a shortstop, and then all of a sudden he was the best defensive player in baseball?
Yep.
And now he's hitting?
I agree.
Hey,
I've got a question for you guys. So, like, are we expecting too much? Like, I guess when we see guys drafted, I know baseball's different because we're drafting players that aren't going to be in the major leagues for a couple of years, unlike the NFL where they jump right into the league. In the NHL, some guys do make that transition as rookies. Some will go back to junior or NCAA or wherever they're playing. But baseball, I think, takes a lot longer to develop into, major league ready players than any other sport does. So are we kind of seeing, these outliers here of these young phenoms that can come in at 2021, and are we kind of just expecting that from players nowadays to just, no matter what, if they're not coming into the major leagues by 2021, they're considered busts in people's minds? Or are we kind of just trying to rush their development too much and kind of expecting too much from these young players that are drafted first overall or in the first round that we don't see for many years, especially in baseball? What do you think of that, Colin?
Expecting, like, I want to take that rate from you. Expecting too much. Perfect. Nate Pearson, what are we expecting from Nate Pearson? I'm just expecting him to get used to the major league level for this year, and then hopefully next year you kind of see he kind of turns into what Casey Mize is doing right now in Detroit. And even Casey Mize, you're not expecting him this year to go out and throw no hitters and be the man, right? You're just expecting him to get better each time you're out there, get better. And that's all I'm expecting from Nate Pearson is baby steps. That's like Alex Manoah, who's getting the call up, who's getting the start tonight. I mean, those guys you want to see develop. I'm not expecting Alex Manoah to go out there and throw a no-hitter or just pitch a gem. I'm just expecting him to go out there and I want to see 3 quality innings at a time. Three innings. That's it. The way the game is now, it's bullpen anyways, right? So I just want to see 3 quality innings. And if you get us 4, wow, great job. That's a quality outing. But I just think that I want to see guys develop slowly. I want to see them have 2 good pitches just over 1 good pitch, because Nate Pearson, he's got the fastball, right? But now we got to see the changeup and the slider get to work, and it's hard to adjust at the major league level. Major League Baseball is very hard. It's probably the toughest sport to go up to and be good at right away. I mean, you don't see that too often. I mean, everyone has growing pains. I mean, it's year 3 for Vladdy, right? It's year 2 for Nate Pearson, and technically it's year 1 for Nate Pearson, really, because last year, I don't know if you count that or not. So maybe Nate Pearson's 2 years away from being Nate Pearson. In my opinion, Alek Manoah is 2 years away from being Alek Manoah. So I just want to see him ride it out. Vladdy Jr.'s in year 3. This is what we expected. Vladdy Jr. looks incredible. Vladdy Jr., he realized that this is his profession and it's not a game. And he did all that work in the offseason. It's paid off. I mean, he's a horse, man. Like, he's a stud. So I just think you're expecting way too much of these kids at the start. I mean, a lot of them are 22 years old. What do you expect? Do you expect them to go out there and hit Max Scherzer, hit Justin Verlander, hit Garrett Cole? Do you expect them to do that? I don't. I mean, you usually don't. You don't get the Bo Bichette's too often. You hit a home run off Clayton Kershaw. You don't get that too often.
Reece, I mean, again, we talk about the different levels of baseball, and it has a lot more developmental leagues than maybe any other sport. You go from single A, double A, triple A, and then that biggest jump is from triple A to the majors. How many guys do we see in the light it up in AAA, and they just can't. They're those fringe guys. They play great in AAA, but they can't make that jump to the MLB and have that same success. Just, are we expecting these kids to just rise up from single A ball all the way up to the majors in 1 year? And if they don't do that, they're seen as, not the greatest prospect that the team or organization, or the fans for that matter. The fans are the ones that really, take this stuff out of proportion for putting these expectations on these kids to be the quote unquote saviors of these organizations. And are we just expecting too much, like I just mentioned, about, taking those next steps so quickly from all the different levels that it takes to get to the major league level?
Yeah, you mentioned single A to the major leagues. Not a chance that's ever going to happen, because depending on the type of player you are, you might even start at high A before you even get to A, right? There's 4 to 5 different levels that you have to get through. Obviously, if you're good enough, the team, the organization, they will skip levels for you if you're excelling. That's just, depends on the player. It doesn't happen too often, but it does happen. And you talk about us expecting these players at 20, 21, 22 years old to come into the major leagues, hit 50 home runs, driving 125 RBIs. Spencer Torkelson was drafted first overall in 2020. Now, clearly, he didn't get to start off his professional career the way he wanted to. He was at the alternate training site. Now, he was working one-on-one with Alan Trammell every single day, which is awesome. I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. could have absolutely used someone like that in Toronto for his defensive work. Possibly he could have stayed at third base, but again, we're past that point with him. But Torkelson's 21 years old. He's only 1 year younger than Colin and I. He drafted out of college. These college guys are older, and we see it in hockey in Canada. We're used to it, where you're coming out of the OHL as the number 1 overall pick. You come into come into the NHL and you expect to light it up, and well, it's McDavid, like it's going to happen. Whereas in baseball, Torkelson, I think it was like 10 games in. He didn't hit his first home run until 10 games.
Yeah, the other day.
His first season in West Michigan. So to have expectations for guys, and even Riley Green, they drafted him out of high school. He's 16 years old. Like, what do you expect him to do? He's not going to come up to the major leagues and, like I said, hit 50 bombs. He's been in the minor leagues for 3 or 4 years already, and he's still 20. Like, he's still young as hell. So there's a different version of a player at each level. You get the single A level where, you know, you start to see him grow as a person, as a professional, start carrying himself a little bit better. You get to double A where all the prospects are. That's where, if you're in the lineup constantly, you're part of that organization's future. You get up to triple A because you start to see veterans who, like you said, Brandon, they're not good enough to stick at the major league level. So that's the level where you're at. You're like, you're there, but it's nice to see some veteran guys that you're playing against and playing with.
You can think the game.
Yeah, your AAA version of yourself will be a total 360 of your major league self. You will not. You won't be the same player. It's never going to happen. You're clearly going to struggle at the major league level, and it's a game of failure. Guys who hit 350, you're still failing. If you're hitting 500, then you're barely passing. You're passing at the minimum. Like like baseball players fail every day. So
be a good baseball player, you got to accept failure
out of these players, and it's absolutely brutal to expect a pitcher to go out and win the Cy Young in his rookie year. It's not going to happen.
I mean, it's not the NFL where these quarterbacks are projected to start from day one that they're drafted in the first round. They're sometimes 5-6 years older than these other kids that are being drafted in other sports, just by the way that they have to go through college and things like that. So again, these baseball prospects are not finished products whatsoever. So again, that's why sometimes it's even a crapshoot that the number 1 overall pick might not even become what they're expecting. Obviously, you'd hope that the expert scouting would go into that, but you just can't project a kid at 16 knowing what he's going to be like at 23, 24 years old. It's very tough, and we see in baseball that it can be even more tough than maybe any other sports. But let's quickly get into another topic before we hit our last commercial break here. And I'm going to pull up the NL and AL standings here for you guys on the screen here on YouTube. And just general thoughts on a lot of big winning streaks going on here, gentlemen. At the time of recording this episode, obviously, the Rays, they're undefeated in their last 10 games. You've got the Yankees who are 8-2. I know they're getting beat up by the Jays right now, which I know Colin is excited to talk about.
No. I'm getting ready. Michael Scott, I'm getting ready to get my heart broken.
Yep.
No.
The Padres
I'm back 9 here. I'm getting ready to get my heart broken. The bullpen's going to come in. Next thing you know, it's 5-3. I hope that's not the case, but...
The last time we talked on this podcast, we were talking about the Padres and Dodgers and kind of what those two teams were looking like, and now they're both 9-1 in their last 10 games. So... in general, gentlemen, just a lot of these big teams here finally going on big winning streaks and kind of getting their seasons turned around here. We see the cream kind of rising to the top here as we had expected. And we talked a few weeks ago about a couple of those top teams struggling. But as we make the transition here to almost June, Reece, it seems like we're finally getting into seeing the real contenders within each division.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, you can still look at the AL East and say it's a 4-team race because it is. Tampa Bay, Boston, New York, Toronto, they're going to be fighting, I think, until the end of September. I think it's going to be an absolute fun race in that division. The AL Central, it's going to be the White Sox. They're clearly starting to pull ahead, despite being 5-5 in their last 10, having that struggle in the Bronx against the Yankees. They're still the best team by far in the American League Central, which, by the way, I look like a complete moron picking Minnesota to win the division.
Yeah, they're having a rough stretch.
Man, it's going badly. But in the AL West, Oakland, Houston, expected that. I'd like to give a shout out to all of those people that picked the Angels to win the division because
with no pitching
that isn't going well, is it? Yeah. It's amazing how having no pitching can lead you to a division title. It's amazing, isn't it? And then like National League. A lot. Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. You got the Mets, Braves, Marlins actually in third place, only one game back of the New York Mets. They are tied going into May 25th. with the Atlanta Braves and only a half a game up on the Philadelphia Phillies and only 2 games up on the Nationals. So that division's still kind of working its way out. But all in all, you're seeing kind of what you expected. Again, couple exceptions, but there's quite a bit where you're like, okay, yeah, I saw that coming.
Yeah. Colin, what do you think? Obviously, the Angels in last goes to show that just because you have 2 all-world players like Ohtani and Trout doesn't mean and one the best player in baseball, Mike Trout. So it goes to show that 1 or 2 players can't make a team go from last place to first. So is there anything that's really surprising you right now looking at these standings here on the screen on the YouTube side for our viewers here? Padres and Dodgers obviously 9-1 in their last 10, and the Rays are undefeated in their last 10.
You know what? Honestly, the Tigers, it wasn't looking good a couple weeks ago. It was looking like where they were going to do the Baltimore Orioles, and it was over. It was over before Memorial Day, which sucks. Yeah. And all of a sudden, we go 5-5 in our last 10 today. We're back in business. I mean,
they were 8-2. Tigers were 8-2.
Yeah, like it's nice to see the Tigers. I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs in the season. I mean, the Jays 5.5. I mean, they have it 3-7 in their last 10. I mean, it hasn't been great, but I mean, the bullpen, they've been in games until the bullpen comes in. If the bullpen wins 3 more of those games, the Jays, I mean, they're 2.5 out. They're 2.5 out. Those are bad. Those are tough division games to lose. You lose 5 in a row to in that division. I mean, 2 to Boston and 4 to Tampa, so 6 in a row. But that's tough.
And it's crazy tough. Because there's
New York.
There's really no team that really has bottomed out so far. I know the Diamondbacks have had a tough stretch here. They're 1-9 in their last 10, but I mean, you take that away, they're an almost 500 ball club, and like they're again the worst team in baseball has 17 wins, and that's the Orioles. So I mean, that's not that bad when you think about it. There really is no team that has completely bottomed out like we had expected maybe 3 or 4 teams to do. I mean, there are some teams obviously aren't going to win the division, but I think that this year there really hasn't been that team to really bottom out yet as far as what we've seen so far. I mean, the Diamondbacks are heading towards that 1-9, but even then, they're still only 12 games back despite being 1-9 in their last 10 games. So, Reece, what do you think about that? Just the fact that there really hasn't been a team yet that is completely, bottomed out and know that's going to finish last place. It really seems like these teams are at least remaining competitive, even though the rosters might not be competitive if you look on paper.
Yeah, that's again another way to keep fans engaged for all 162. Now, will these teams bottom out? Will these teams never bottom out? No. Once we get into July, August, you'll start to see those records dip. You'll start to see the run differential climb, and it's just inevitable. That's sports. Doesn't matter what league it is. And the fact that Baltimore, they're 17-30, but they've also won 17 games. The Twins, Tigers, same record, 18-29. Really not that bad, despite having to play the Chicago White Sox, Cleveland Indians, Kansas City Royals, who have been really good this season, the Texas Rangers, who aren't even in last in their division. And how many people said, "Oh, yep, number 1 overall pick, let's call it now."
0% chance in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to make the playoffs anyways. You could probably keep that amount at 0. But the National League East, I don't think anyone really expected any of those teams to bottom out anyways. So the fact that first and last is separated by 2 games is awesome. I love that. The Pittsburgh Pirates are 18-28, really only 10 games under 500.
It's not that bad for them. It really isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like they've beaten some good teams. I watched a couple of their games against the Chicago Cubs, and they've played pretty well. They've lit up Chicago pitching. So it's a year where you're coming off 60 games, and you have more players that are feeling good. They didn't play the grind of 162. They only played 60, so they're still fresh from last season, right? So they were all ready to go. And again, these guys are major leaguers, so we expect teams to compete, and that's why you can never take a day off.
Yep. Colin, last word before we hit our last break.
Yeah, I agree with Reece. I mean, a lot of these teams that you expected to have a 0% chance of making the playoffs or even being in it at any point in the season have had great years, which is good to see. It's good to see parity in baseball. I mean, you need that. I don't like to see teams with like 10 wins instead of 17, And credit to Baltimore, too. Baltimore 17 wins in a tough division.
Yeah.
Division. I mean, they played Tampa Bay. They just played Tampa Bay. They played Boston. They played New York. They haven't played Toronto yet, but they've played every team. I mean, that's tough.
Speaking of Toronto, we're going to get to them in our last segment, so stay right here. Be right back on the Full Count MLB podcast and right here in the Armchair GM Sports Network.
Experience a new way to play daily fantasy sports and esports on Thrive Fantasy. Thrive's game concept revolves around player props, which are simple over-unders on player stats. There are contests for traditional sports including the NFL, NBA, MLB, PGA, and cricket, as well as esports titles including CSGO, Dota 2, League of Legends, and more coming soon. Here's how to play. Choose your lineup of over-unders for top-tier athletes that have the biggest impact on the game. Each prop has a fantasy point total based on how likely it is to hit. The more points the selection is worth, the riskier it is. Rack up the most points and win a share of the prize pool. Thrive is awarded over $2 million in cash, so come and prop up today.
You're listening to the Armchair GM Sports Network, the Niagara region's best local source for North American sports podcasting coverage. By sports fans, for sports fans.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the final segment of our Full Count MLB podcast right here on the Armchair GM Sports Network. Brandon Caputo, Reece, and Colin Ward back with you here. And obviously for this final segment on today's show, we are going to be discussing Toronto Blue Jays. And obviously Colin's got a lot of thoughts on that. Obviously the Jays aren't playing at home right now. Canada's not allowing any sports teams to travel from the United States to Canada, but hopefully as we transition from the summer to the fall, those things can change and we can start to see some live sporting events back in Ontario especially. So with that said, there's a quick note here that I'm going to bring up, and this was, if I can, there it is, Jays moving. And again, I apologize, it's from WGRZ in Buffalo, and I couldn't get that darn Google ad off the screen, so I apologize for that, but they say that the Toronto Blue Jays announced Monday that they will be expanding seating for the fully vaccinated people at Salin Field beginning June 15th. The team says they've worked with local health officials to increase the overall seating capacity to 45%. 65% of those seats are in the fully vaccinated section, while 34% of those seats are in the socially distant pods. Tickets for those games from June 15th to 17th will go on sale on the 27th at 10 a.m. Following the guidelines, fans sitting in the outdoor seating bowl will not have to wear a face mask, but they will still need to wear one when indoors, including the suites, restrooms, and the concourse. Tickets for Blue Jays games from June 24th to July 4th go on sale on June 8th, starting at 10 a.m. So, Colin, what do you think about the news? Obviously, the Jays are moving. They play their last game in Dunedin, in Florida. They're going to go up to Buffalo. They've renovated Salin Field once again to host the Blue Jays for one more season. What do you think this means for the Bisons as well? Just, with both those teams going to have to play them. Yeah.
Trenton's closer for call-ups. That's good. I mean, with the Bisons, you expected they're in Trenton for the year anyways. I mean, they won't be in Buffalo because of the Jays, which is fine, I guess. But it's nice to see there's going to be fans in the ballpark. I hope it's a little bit more divided. I hope there's a little bit more Blue Jay fans there. I don't know how much it'll be Blue Jay fans when the Yankees go to town, when the Mets go to town. In my opinion, I don't think it's going to be very even, but they somehow think it's going to be. But I will tell you this one thing. This was just in. With Vladdy's home run tonight, he's first in home runs with 16, first in RBIs with 41, first in slugging percentage .680, OPS 1.129, that's first, and first in total bases at 115.
Yeah, like we mentioned,
That's insane. That's MVP for the first 40 games.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned, he was a bust in year one, and we're putting too much on these kids, but it's good for Vladdy. Reece, what do you think about that announcement about Salin Field and just in general about the Jays going up to play in Buffalo for, again, this season?
Yeah, you had to get to Buffalo. There's no way they could have stayed in Dunedin the entire season. Despite it still being a minor league ballpark, I think Salem Field has a lot more of a major league feel. You've got more than one level of seats in Salem Field. Now, you don't have Rogers Center where you have like
Sweet.
4 levels, but in Buffalo, the stands are high enough where, the sun won't be around for 2 hours out of a 3-hour game. It'll duck below maybe an hour into the game or something like that. There's always that factor. There's the factor of, like you said, there are more fans available to be in the ballpark. And I know a lot of major league parks are scrapping the whole percentage totals and just saying, hey, yep, come on down. We want to sell it out. So from the fan perspective, from the player perspective, it's awesome. Clearly, they don't want to be in Buffalo. Who the hell wants the Jays to be in Buffalo? I don't think anybody does. But it's what you got to do. Like the NHL playoffs, the Canadian team that comes out is going to have to move to the U.S. and play out of an American arena. So it's just the way it is. Baseball has to adapt. Luckily, there's really only one Canadian team. Like the Raptors, they moved. That's all the NBA had to worry about. All MLB had to worry about was the Toronto Blue Jays and where they were going to play. And it's going to be Buffalo this year for the last 4 months of the season.
And they're a lot like the Raptors in that case. I mean, going in Tampa Bay for the season. I mean, like Masai Ujiri said last week, the president of the Toronto Raptors, mentioned that they're not going to play in Tampa. They're playing in Toronto next year. Nowhere else. They're playing in Toronto. And the Jays are in the same situation. The Jays are so fed up where they just want to play in Toronto. I guarantee you they're so desperate to play in Toronto. I mean, that hurts. In Tampa Bay, they really can have a full capacity, or in Dunedin, they can have a full capacity because they didn't want to take fans away from the Rays.
Yeah. Well, you think about it, too.
It's a tough spot there.
The Raptors only had to do it for a year. The Blue Jays, this is their second year in a row they're not playing at Rogers Center.
Well, and another thing is that might help being in Buffalo. Vladdy, Bo, Cavan, those guys just came out of Buffalo. So that's good because you have fan favorites there. That's good, but it's not the same. I mean, Yankee fans aren't going to be going to watch the Jays play the Rays. They might as a playoff race, you never know. Some of those guys are nutcases, but
or if you don't want to pay Yankee Stadium fees.
Yeah, exactly. In the 6-hour drive.
But no, I agree. Especially in Florida, there's a lot of people that migrate down there and they go as away fans to all these games. So again, it's difficult in that scenario.
Well, when you think about it too, the Yankees spring training facility is probably only an hour and a half away from Dunedin.
Half hour. Tampa.
Yeah, like the Yankees are more than likely more popular in Tampa Bay than the Tampa Bay Rays are.
Well, they had within 45 minutes to an hour, the Jays had. Well, they didn't play some of these teams, but the Jays had the Phillies, who they played just down the road, like 10 minutes away in St. Petersburg, or Clearwater. They had Philadelphia, who was right down the road, 10 minutes away from the stadium. Tampa Bay, who's less than a half hour from the stadium. The Yankees, who are right around the corner from the Jays. The Tigers are down the road. They didn't play the Tigers, but the Tigers are down the road in Lakeland. The Pirates, they didn't play, but that's just down the road. They got all those fan bases there where you play the Phillies. When they played the Phillies, it was all Philly fans. Literally, it's 10 minutes away from the ballpark where the Phillies have their spring training. And a lot of these people, and a lot of the Canadians went home because of the quarantine. That's when they come home, right? And we're not open as a province, but a lot of Canadians came home. So there's another thing where you're not really having a lot of Canadian fans there, where Buffalo, hopefully you do.
And again, it's not a major league ballpark in my opinion either in Dunedin. So again, that might segue into why the Jays pitching has been so bad. I'm sure that has something to do with it a little bit. But as I pull it up on the screen here, Reece, what is going on with the Toronto Blue Jays and this pitching staff? The hitters have continued to be pretty decent, but as you can see on the screen here on YouTube, just not getting the job done here.
Yeah. What happened to the old days where we'd see Jack Morris throw a 10-inning shutout? I miss those days. I wasn't even thought of when that happened, but yeah, pitchers are soft. They're so
prima donna.
Yeah, like they have to be movie stars where everything has to be perfect. The ball hit the dirt. I need a new one.
I need to rub it down. I need a rosin bag.
I get that if it gets scuffed up enough, you're like, okay, it's tough to throw this, but bounces once in the dirt. Like that's pitchers. That's my perspective as pitchers. As a catcher, being the guy that's actually blocking their pitches because they feel the need to not throw it in the strike zone, so we have to block it. Which is part of the plan sometimes. But that's just my vision of pitchers. So for the Jays, I think you have guys who really can't go more than 5 innings. If you look at it, the Jays pitching has, and I don't know the average amount of innings that the starters have gone. I'd have to do a little bit of math and some research, so that'd be a little bit tough. Might be a stat for next week, but when your bullpen is 4 innings a night, that's more than likely 4 different pitchers because, your bullpen is not going to have a 1-2-3 inning in the 6th, in the 7th, in the 8th, and in the 9th. It may happen, but the likelihood of it happening is not very good. So we knew it was going to happen. Like if someone came up to me and said, "Well, I didn't expect this from the Jays bullpen. I thought they were going to be great. I thought 1-2-3 innings every inning." No, you're an idiot. You've clearly never watched baseball. So it was inevitability. We knew it was going to happen. Maybe happened a little bit earlier than we wanted it to, being that it's still May. Maybe we would have expected this mid-June to end of June, early July maybe, but the fact that it's in the end of May, we're not even out of the second month of the season. That's where's the trades? Because I think they need a starter that knows how to go at least 6 innings.
I mean, Hyunjin Ryu, Colin, obviously 2.53s, 4-2. But other than that, I mean, the combined team ERA, if you're seeing on YouTube right now from BaseballReference.com, they've got a team ERA of 4.04, and to me, that's not going to get it done if you want to compete for your division title. I don't care how many good hitters you have, and if Vlad Guerrero's having an MVP type season. We see it in Los Angeles with Ohtani and Trout, how great they are, but if you don't have pitching, you've got no chance.
Yeah, the Jays are just more deep than LA in the batting order, but yeah, exactly. Pitching, you need pitching to win. That's why every team that wins pays their pitchers a lot of money, because they have the good pitchers and they win. When the Nationals won, they had pitching. I mean, Strasburg was a horse, Scherzer was a horse, and then they had Patrick Corbin step up and do his thing. You need that. I mean, when
they
Houston
got Daniel Hudson from the Blue Jays, who got the final World Series.
Exactly. Like the team that wins, you look at it. They have at least three starters that you could throw out there any given day, and they'd win. The Jays, they kind of showed spurts of that at the start of the year. To be honest, Steven Matz had a great start. He had a great start, Steven Matz. Robbie Ray, hit and miss. Robbie Ray, he's looked better. He has looked better. He has improved, but Robbie Ray, throughout his career, there's been control issues there. He'll strike 2 guys out to start the inning, and then he'll walk a guy or give up a long ball. Just consistency. Consistency is huge, similar to what we're looking for in Nate Pearson. We want to see a good first inning before you can move on. We want to see 1 inning at a time. And I think right now with the starters, I think there's too much thinking before the game. This is what you're going to do. I think there's too much game planning. I think there's too much, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then all of a sudden, none of it happens, right? And it's like, oh, crap, we're in the 3rd inning, and we're losing 5-0 to Tampa Bay. All of a sudden, Ross Stripling comes in and pitches 7 scoreless, and it's like, hey, nice, right? But it's just so taxing on the bullpen. To another thing, it's just, you can't when you tax the bullpen that early in April and May, it's just a recipe for a long year. It really is. I mean, they have a lot of waiver claims too. I mean, no offense to Detroit, but Anthony Castro was a waiver claim from the Detroit Tigers. Is that an upgrade for a team that wants to make the playoffs? I don't think it is. I mean, you need guys that, if you want to win, you got to get legit upgrades. Because if the Yankees are going to go sign a guy like Corey Kluber, who is a legit upgrade, you can say what you want. Jameson Taillon too. That's a legit upgrade. It's a low risk, high reward signing. Anthony Castro was a waiver claim. It's not the same thing, which is kind of, and plus reliever to starter too is another thing. But when the division goes out and does things like that, and you kind of just go, not cheat, because I can't say that because of George Springer signing, who hasn't done anything yet, really, a couple games. But other than that, what have they done, right?
And
So it's tough.
it's concerning because they sweep the Braves in the 3-game series. Then they take 2 or 3 from the Phillies. And then, they beat the Red.
Then you're riding high.
Then their offense continues to score runs, but you look at it, they lose 8-7, 9-7, 6-4, 14-8. Like, they're putting up the runs that you would expect a major league team to be able to win with those numbers. But with the Jays pitching right now, there's a reason why they've lost so many games in a row here against the Red Sox and the Rays. They can't, other than the 3-1 game, they've gotten quality production from their offense, and it's just been the pitching that can't hold on to these games, and it's unfortunate because the Jays are having a great season as far as their hitters go, but like you've both mentioned, great. If you don't have those guys to be able to shut the door, and a ball game is 9 innings, it's not just 4 or 5 when you can go up big. You got to be able to close the game out, and right now they're not getting that done.
It's mismanagement too. Reece, you might be able to help me out with this one too. The pitching coach and manager, I know the manager has the final say, but the pitching coach has a lot of input in the game plan. They really do. That's the pitching coach's job, right? You watch the side sessions. The manager's not watching the side sessions. He gets the word from the pitching coach. Yeah. But I just think there's a lot of mismanagement here. I don't really know who it is, but it might be Montoyo, it might be Walker, mix of both, which it probably is a mix of both because it's a game plan.
There's probably some advisor for the GM up in the press box saying,
I'm just trying to figure that out. I'm just trying to figure who that is because
like Peter Brand up in the Cleveland Indians front office telling Shapiro what to do.
It's just, I just don't know who it is because you watch some of the decisions they make. I'm not like Jordan Romano, who's their best guy. He's their best reliever right now. I would take him over any other relievers right now to come in any spot. Chatwood, too, hasn't been bad. He had the rough outing there before, but Jordan Romano's the guy I would take and put in any situation right now. But, so he comes in for the 8th inning, goes 1, 2, 3, no problem. 9th inning, they bring in Tim Meza, and next thing you know, they give up. They walk 3 in a row or bring in Jeremy Beasley. Like, that's not an upgrade. You should have it the other way around at least if you're going to do that. I just think there's a lot of mismanagement. I just think if your best guy needs to go in the crucial spot, if you're up by 3, you might as well let it go and bring in Romano in the bottom of the 8th or top of the 8th, whatever, in the 8th inning with 2 out instead. You might have to get a 4-out save. But I just think you got to pick and choose better for the Jays right now because you got to use the guys like Romano who want to pitch every game. He can't pitch every game, but Jordan Romano, he's up in the 6th inning walking around, like, getting ready to go in whenever you need him. So, like, it's guys like that you got to kind of ride them out here until someone comes off the IL, because until then, you can't be crying wolf here because that's what you got to do. You just got to shut up and play the game. It's a get-it-done league, what Josh Donaldson said. Another thing that really was on my nerves when Charlie Montoyo said, we're trying hard. We're trying hard. Okay, you're trying hard, but you're 3-7 in your last 10? That's not trying hard. It's not the try league. It's a get it done league, right? That's not getting it done. You're a Major League Baseball player. Are the New York Yankees, when they go 3-7 in April, are the New York Yankees saying we're trying hard? Heck no. They're booing Aaron Judge. You got Cashman speaking on national radio saying that they're gonna burn the whole stadium up. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Next thing you know, they win. They go 7-3 in their next 10. Right now, I don't see that with the Jays going 7-3. I hope. You never know. If they win the series against New York, you would hope they would beat Cleveland if they beat the Yankees. You would hope, but that's a long ways away. And I don't know. That just gets on my nerve. So when you have Charlie Montoyo, the manager, saying, "We tried hard. We tried hard." Like, okay, but you lost.
Yeah.
You're Major League Baseball. You're not sending that message. That's not the right message to send. Do you think Bo Bichette cares if he tried hard and they lost? Yeah, I tried hard. I went 4 for 5. I tried hard. I made this diving play, but we lost 9-6. We lost. But I tried hard. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Shut up.
I don't think
it's not try league. It's a get it done league.
I don't think those teams with Batista, Encarnacion, and Donaldson would be okay with
And I don't think
Just
this
trying
team is
either.
either. I don't think Marcus Simeon's okay with that. I don't think Bo Bichette's okay with that. I don't think Vladdy's okay with that. I don't think anyone is. I just don't get that message from the manager. It's clueless.
Yeah, it really is not like Tony LaRussa, like we talked about in segment one. It's just not a good look for your organization and reflection of your fan base. But I know Colin can rant about this forever, but let's quickly touch on the player stats before we wrap up today, Reece. And like I mentioned, good stuff. I mean, you can save that for a rant next week on Charlie Montoya if you want. But obviously, we talked about Vlad Guerrero. Obviously, at time recording, he's hit his 16th home run.
Might not have to talk about it. He'll be gone.
Hit his 16th home run.
Yeah.
And obviously, they look good, Reece. They really do. Offensively, pitching, we just talked about, the other side of the coin. But to finish off on the show today, there's been positive signs from these young players taking that next step into what it's like to be major league players and to be able to be consistent major league players. Again, they're still at very young ages here. If you look at, those top guys, Bichette's 23, Guerrero's 22, and even Kevin Biggio, obviously currently injured right now, he's 26. So obviously you have to be encouraged by the way that this team has played offensively, if nothing else, Reece.
Yeah, and again, it's what everyone expected. It's what Sportsnet's kept saying. It's what TSN has kept saying. Like everyone, MLB Network, like it's Blue Jays. Oh, they can hit. They can really hit. And yeah, they can when you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in your lineup and Bo Bichette, Randall Grichuk, Teoscar Hernandez. Like we knew it was going to happen. It just clearly they were off to a way slower start than everyone expected. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, Vlad Jr.'s going to hit 5 home runs in his first 3 games. Bo Bichette, he's going to have like 5 triples in his first week of play. Like, no, that's not going to happen. And the fact that you're seeing this take place, again, like I said, it's not good that the bullpen has been this bad and it's starting to get fatigued at the end of May. Whereas the offense, the fact that they're hot at the end of May and they're starting to show like, hey, like this is what we're supposed to be at the end of May is awesome. Whereas the teams who, start to show that offensive pop and that offensive mindset and just being great at the plate, when that happens in July, you look at it and go, oh, it's too late. We're like 8 games out of first place. Can it be done that you come back? For sure, but maybe tough when you're going up against a team like the Yankees or the Rays in the AL East who are already, excelling offensively. So for the Jays, this is really good to see. Not into June yet, and Guerrero's hitting up a storm. Marcus Semien, a very nice surprise with his 12 home runs in 47 games. So, yeah, the Jays can hit. It's just I hope people don't expect or don't start getting angry when twice every 7 days they score less than 2 runs. Yeah. That's what worries me is the fans will get on these guys so much. Oh, that's 2 games and 3 nights that they haven't scored more than 2 runs. What's going on with this offense? Do we need
Vladdy's
to
only hit 2 home runs this week.
It happens. It's been 162 games. You're not going to score 8 runs every game. So
they're too much like hockey fans, man. They're too much like hockey fans.
Are we expecting too much now? Like Reece mentioned, that's a good point, Colin, that Reece just made about if they don't score 7 or 8 runs a game, are the media going to get on these kids? What's going on? Why are it's 162 games? Like to echo what Reece said, they're not gonna sustain that every single game.
I think like what Reece said, I think this is a good time of the year to hit adversity. I mean, every team hits adversity throughout the year. I mean, the Yankees hit their adversity.
Oh, it was awful.
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It's a good time. But I think the first couple months is the best time to hit adversity because then you can really get momentum off it once things get good. And you fix things early. If you hit adversity in July and August, it's too late, right? Yep. I think this is a good time for the Jays to hit adversity, kind of learn a little bit because they're a young team. Maybe at the beginning of the year they were a little bit too ahead of themselves. Maybe overrated a little bit. I mean, guys were on social media putting out videos. I mean, there were quotes saying, "We're gotta come home with a trophy." There was some heavy-duty quotes that are out of that clubhouse, right? They expect big things, and sometimes when it doesn't go your way, how do we react from that? That's how good teams are born, right? Good teams can get over that, no problem, and get better. They can communicate better. The teams that don't communicate don't get better. And I think this team, I think they're close. I think they're playing well. But you just need to come together as a team now. You need the pitching. if they can hit like that and they get the pitching, look out. This team has the ability to go 8-2 in their next 10 if they can pitch.
Yeah, they've got the Yankees.
The Yankees are, but then they got Cleveland.
In Cleveland.
Right?
Yep. So.
Yeah, you can't lose that series to Cleveland. I mean, even the series against New York, you got to win. You can't lose 3 straight series against teams you're chasing in the division. You really can't. And New York's the toughest one, probably, other than Tampa. I mean, Tampa's always frustrating to play for the Jays, but New York's a team where the Jays, series-wise, have won both series so far against the Yankees. So you gotta go 3 for 3 to start the year against the Yankees. And I mean, last series when Bichette hit the walk-off there and the Jays won that series, you wouldn't think you'd be here today saying you got to win another one against the Yankees, but you really do. Because if you fall to more than 10 games back, that's very tough to catch that. If you fall to 10 games back, it's tough to get back in it. With 4 teams you got to chase, or 3 teams you got to chase. That's tough.
Reece, final thoughts for the show today?
It's not Blue Jays related, but as an umpire at the OBA level, shout out to Joe West for breaking the all-time record of umpiring games, passing Hall of Famer Bill Clem. On Tuesday night, Joe West will have done his 5,376th regular season game, and he had the plate for the Cardinals-White Sox game, like I said, on Tuesday night, the 25th. So just to give shout out to Joe West, who in his career started at age 23, and he has had a total of 193 ejections.
Nice.
So shout out to Country Joe West.
We've seen those in the last couple of years there. He's definitely lost his patience and maybe thrown out guys a little too quickly, but again, it's going to happen when you've had so many You've done so many games, you just kind of get fed up with it. I'm sure we'll get to that point at one point in our lives. But with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to wrap it up for our first video version of the Full Count MLB podcast. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed seeing my wonderful 2 co-hosts to my left. If you're watching on YouTube, there, as we transition to video version on this podcast, and we can see Colin with his Colin the lefty. We can actually make the signal now.
Who do I send the stylist bill to here?
The stylist bill goes to.
I should go Shannon Sharp on him. Call him right now. Interrupt him during the Leaf game.
You should, but
man, we got to send the bill to the Rook.
Yeah, we'll send it to wherever we're sending the Lou Whitaker for the Hall of Fame petitions. But
rookies anymore.
With that said, that's going to wrap it up for the Full Count MLB podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network, your source North American sports coverage by sports fans, for sports fans, delivered to you right here in the beautiful Niagara region. As always, I'm one of your hosts of the Full Count MLB podcast. My name is Brandon Caputo. You can follow me on Twitter, again, right there on the video version, at Caputs13_AGM. As well, you can follow my 2 co-hosts there, at Reece Demani and at Colin Ward_14. Gentlemen, thanks so much again, and look forward to talking more baseball in the coming weeks. And with that said, thank you to all of our great sponsors. Help put us on, support the network, keeping the show on the air. Make sure you're checking them out and telling them that the Armchair GM sent you. And to you viewers out there and baseball fans for tuning in and listening along for this episode of the Full Count MLB podcast on the Armchair GM Sports Network. We'll talk to you guys soon.